All right, welcome back to Intentional Grounding. Almost fumbled the intro right there.
We can review that recovery now.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can review that now.
Welcome to Intentional Grounding. We grab the ball, we throw it towards somebody, but when they're not actually there. That's what Costa just did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I threw.
No, Mike,
15-yard penalty.
We throw to the ground.
Right.
The point is that no one's around.
Right.
Exactly.
15-yard penalty.
So to reintroduce myself, I am Costa Viennas, one of your three co-hosts. With me, Mike Woodard and Tyler Spittle. So last segment, we talked about the owners' meetings, competition committee, all that good stuff, new rules, and what to look forward to as far as changes during the NFL games we'll be watching this upcoming season and for years to come. But now we are going to take a more serious tone to the podcast.
Like that part in the movie, like in the third
exactly.
act, like in that middle of the second act, and everything is like,
Yeah. So
its darkest point, the
So-
low point. That's what it is. I remembered.
So, if you've been paying close attention to other NFL news outside of happenings in free agency, then you've likely heard about the case involving Ray Rice and his fiancee. Just to give a quick recap of that, Ray Rice and his fiancee were at a casino in Atlantic City, and there was security footage of Ray Rice dragging his fiancee's unconscious body out of an elevator. They were both charged with assault in the domestic violence case. The way it was reported was that his fiancee had instigated some sort of argument or disagreement, which led to her hitting him, and then him hitting her back, and she getting knocked out. And obviously, everyone's been kind of waiting to see how it developed. This happened back in January, and just yesterday, they were saying out of it with the court system, saying that they are indicting him on third-degree assault charges. And if he is found guilty, he could face 3 to 5 years in prison, which is a major turn of events. While he hasn't been found guilty yet, the penalty at hand is very serious.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah. So I mean, if you guys want to.
Okay, let me start off on this one. We don't know the full story. Okay, like we haven't seen that. We probably will never get to see that videotape in the elevator. So it's very hard for me to quantify what I'm about to say. I never believe that hitting a woman is a good thing ever. That's against my moral character. So I do believe if it's true, whatever has happened,
Right.
Then yes, Ray Rice is in the wrong for that.
Right.
However, she was also charged with assault that
Right.
night. And yes, they have dropped it since. But she was still arrested that night. So that indicates that she wasn't just a straight up victim.
She was a
that
participant.
she had her hand in this somehow.
Yeah.
Exactly. So again, I'm not trying to defend Ray Rice. If he did hit her, that is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I fully believe that. But there is still a case that you can make out of self-defense. Again, I don't know the full story. I don't know what happened, but there's still a small case of self-defense there, and I don't think it's going to exonerate him. I doubt it. I'm really worried for Ray Rice.
Right.
I don't think he gets out of this situation. Now, it is telling though that the Ravens fully support him.
Right.
That's interesting. Is that he must have told them something that, that they think he will be okay at least.
Right.
I'm hoping he pulls out of it. I do, but I'm worried.
What about you, Tyler?
The main point I want to go on about that is the fact that the Ravens have shown support so far, and he likens this case closer to what happened to Lewis over a decade ago compared to, say, what happened to Hernandez last year, where the Patriots just outright pretty much caught him as soon as he got arrested.
It was within 45 minutes, I believe.
Right. I think in this case, obviously, two very high character organizations that just so happen to handle these sort of legal issues differently. And obviously, in the case of Hernandez, though, he was found guilty in his case. and Lewis was eventually exonerated. He was charged with obstruction of justice.
He pled down to it.
Yeah, he pled guilty to obstruction of justice. But now with the case of Ray Rice, because obviously Steve Bisciotti and John Harbaugh and the rest of the Ravens organization, they obviously cannot speak on behalf of the jury. Obviously, they are keeping Ray Rice because there's always the chance that the jury will find him not guilty, and he won't serve any jail time. He will, though, even if he's found not guilty, I expect Roger Goodell to suspend him. I just don't think there's any way, because just the evidence alone of him dragging his fiancee out of the elevator,
that's probably enough.
That's enough. Now, I think my prediction is that worst case scenario, Rice gets a 6-game suspension. I think 4 games is probably more likely, but if Goodell really wants to lay the hammer down, 6. 4, I think it's 4 only because it's a first offense. And Goodell, I don't think, would give him as little as 2 or 3, because then I just think he's going to get a lot of backlash from people.
I think 4 would be a logical place to suspend him.
Yeah, because based on on his history, 2 is more akin to DUIs and such, and then
but this
is the first time that we've heard of Ray Rice doing anything bad. He's been a model in the community.
Right.
He has his anti-bullying campaign.
Which
now
makes it
unfortunately has come back to haunt him
Right.
in light of this incident. So I do believe a 4-game suspension is probably what would happen, as long as he avoids any jail time at all.
Right.
As long we don't know what's going to happen there, but once the legal process plays out, probably 4-game. And I mean, because right, exactly. This is only his first offense.
But Goodell's set that precedent. Like I said, this is such a very bad first offense for Ray Rice. I mean, it's not for instance, like I said, if it were something like a DUI or something, which again, none of this stuff is condonable in any situation.
But some deeds are worse than others.
Right, exactly, and obviously, like Tyler said, that's more in line with a 2-game suspension. But like I said, this is on a different level where someone is being physically harmed, and you have visual evidence of what happened. And as you said, we're likely not going to see. I think obviously in order for him to be indicted on these charges, the courts had to have seen the other security footage of what happened inside the elevator. Because you don't just come out and indict a guy just solely on the evidence of him pulling his. I mean, she could have just passed out from alcohol. Who knows? But obviously, that's obviously not the case. We know that there was a physical fight altercation. We'll say altercation in the
legal terminology.
Yeah. So. It's a very unfortunate situation, and obviously, I think if Rice gets that 4-game suspension, whether it's 4 or I don't think it'll be 6, but 6 I think is if Goodell really wants to lay down the hammer hard.
Which I don't think he will, because for example, Ben Roethlisberger, he had that was his second.
And he got a 4-game suspension. 4-game suspension.
Wasn't it?
It was a 6, and it got down. It was 6 and got downgraded to 4. It got downgraded to 4. So maybe
but
4
he
is
had
what.
been a repeat offender at that point.
Right. Repeat offender. So it'll be an interesting situation. But do you think if Rice does get that 4-game suspension, which, like I said, if he doesn't get found guilty by the jury and he's able to come back to the NFL, he gets suspended for 4 games. We're predicting Goodell will lay that penalty down. Do the Ravens then, because if they're without their top running back for 4 games, do they go out and get another running back?
I think definitely. I mean, I imagine that the Ravens were planning on drafting a running back between rounds 3, 4, and 5 already. So this just might push up even higher as a bigger need, because if they're expecting Rice to be missing for as low as 4 or as many as entire season, and then seasons to come, all we have right now is Bernard Pierce. They need more behind him.
Right, and I mean Bernard Pierce has the ability. He has the chance. If this happens, it's oddly a good thing for Pierce because he can actually show the Ravens that he can step in if need be, or show other teams if, for example, if he goes off to another team in 2 years when his contract's up.
Yeah.
Then it would be a good opportunity for him to step up and say, hey, look, I can carry this load. And he's in a perfect system to do so.
Mm-hmm.
This is a system that loves its running backs.
Right.
And he's a more kind of straightforward, one-cut type of guy. I mean, yes, they would still have to get somebody else. You have to.
Right.
You definitely have to. Whether or not you draft somebody, I think you draft someone anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If they're at the top of your board and they're there, you grab them anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think they'd be more in the need of a veteran though.
It's also just the Ravens' history. Like each draft for past couple, I'm not sure exactly how many, but I know they've drafted at least one running back in each year.
Right. Well, I
so
don't think they drafted anyone. Bernard Pierce, I think, was the last running back they actually drafted. I think that's because Rainey was a free agent.
Right.
As were guys like Anthony Allen and
I
whatnot.
think Allen was a 7th round pick.
Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he was a
pick.
late round pick. Yeah. But I mean, the Ravens have set that precedent where they'll just wait things out, and a lot of people would criticize saying that in situations like this, where I guess when you get into that level of assault and higher, I guess in the degrees of crimes, it should be a zero tolerance policy. But
you have to feel out all the facts though.
Right,
People
exactly.
who say that there should be a zero tolerance policy. What if you got caught up in a situation where
Right.
maybe you weren't necessarily guilty, but that's the way it looks?
there
Well, guess
was-
what? Then you're screwed out of it because of zero tolerance.
I was listening to a local Baltimore radio station, 105.7 The Fan, for those of you who aren't familiar, and I was listening to Bruce Cunningham, who has been a staple in Baltimore sports talk radio for many years,
And the announcer at the stadium.
and the announcer at
M&T
Oriole
Bank.
Park, yeah. And M&T Bank, yeah, he does, yeah.
Oh, does he do the Orioles too? He might. Though, it makes
yeah.
sense.
But anyway, but he made the comment. This is absolutely true. If every single person on Earth, only got one strike, we'd all be done.
Exactly.
Granted, even though this is a very big mistake on Ray Rice's part, this is not a repeat offense. It's a first offense.
Exactly.
And also another thing that people have to understand, at the end of the day, first and foremost, the NFL is a business. And the NFL itself is the overriding organization that oversees the whole thing, but every individual team is a business. And the owners, guys like Steve Bisciotti, Robert Kraft, these guys have to look out for what's best for their business.
Right.
And Ray Rice being the number one running back, one of their most popular players, their top producers, they would be risking a lot just by outright cutting him, without letting the legal system kind of do its diligence.
Well, you just have to consider circumstances.
You have to.
You have to consider everything.
And then what happens? Let's say you're like fan A, and you're a fan of the Ravens, and the Ravens cut Ray Rice, and then you're fan B, who was like, yeah, good job, you did the right thing, you made the right call, you cut Ray Rice, he's a wife beater or whatever. But then fan B's team signs Ray Rice. What is it? I mean, granted, there are some people that would be like, oh, I don't agree with the move, but then other people might have a sudden change of heart because he's wearing your team's colors.
Exactly.
I mean, at the end of the day, there's always going to be a need for players like Ray Rice because they're productive, and like I said, it's an unfortunate situation. It'll play out, and obviously, whatever decisions are made by the jury will have a major impact on this upcoming season. Like either way, Ray Rice is missing football games this year. Whether it's that 4-game suspension that we're thinking Goodell will lay down, or the worst case scenario, he's sitting in a jail cell. So
I hope not.
We all hope not. But
it doesn't look too great at this stage, based on what we all know. But I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I really do, because Ray Rice is a good player,
and for the most part, like I said before this, he's been a very good person, very very involved in the community. So hopefully things turn out well for him, and obviously him and and his fiance are working on things. They're going to, so I mean, they're not just letting it slide and
Right.
whatnot. So they're working on it. So sorry if we got a little dark and gloomy for you guys, but obviously this is something we have to talk about. It's a big progressing story right now in the NFL. We're gonna take a much more lighthearted talk with our next and final segment for our episode. So please, before you move on, check us out on Twitter, follow us, like us on Facebook, and subscribe if you've been enjoying our podcast thus far. So that way you can continually be updated on what we have going on here with Intentional Grounding. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you at the next segment.